Detroit Lions fans, Detroit Den 313 back with another episode. Before we get going, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button if for some crazy reason you haven't hit the subscribe button yet. And we got this 100 members giveaway going on. We're getting close to that 100 members. When we get to 100 members, the giveaway is going to be crazy. We are going to take care of the people who take care of us. That said, day one of the NFL draft is done. Steve, what is on the books today?
Why the hell did we pass on Shedeur Sanders, Will? Why? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
It's right out of the gate.
Yeah,
riled up.
Yeah, I love the pick. Tyleik Williams, we've talked about him. He was on our radar. Brad said some interesting things. I think that, the actions speak for themselves. Tyleik Williams, I think, I'll be honest, it was a little tough with Mike Green and Donovan Ezaraku on the board, but when they said Tyleik Williams, I was happy. And as I sat back and let it digest a little bit and let it, kind of think, all right, what's Brad's plan going forward? I said, Tyleik Williams is a day one starter, plug and play. Like he's a Liam McNeil 2.0. So that's kind of a replacement. And I use that because Aleem's hurt, but I absolutely love the pick. Will, how'd you feel?
First things first, I'm going to gloat a little bit because I came on Detroit Den 313 and I told you Shedeur Sanders, second round. I said it, and you said I was absolutely bananas. They do not like when you come in with this type of attitude. The NFL, listen, anyone in the NFL, if they feel like you're going to disrespect the shield, listen, you mess around and won't play. So, Steve, Shedeur Sanders still being on the board going into round two. Was there anything in your mind before I talk about Tyleik? Was there anything in your mind that said, man, should Detroit Lions make a move here?
I'll be honest with you. I was scared to death, not because Shedeur Sanders was on the board, but because Will Johnson was on the board. And you guys know my thoughts on him. Injury concerns, didn't want anything to do with him. That's who I was more scared of, if I'm being honest. But I did have one of my good friends over, and I said, do we have to have a conversation if Shedeur Sanders is there at 28? Like, do you think the Detroit Lions were planning on him being available? Like, is Brad going to address and draft best player available? Because that term's got to die. I feel like, well, maybe I'm alone on this island, but the best two players on the board were Will Johnson and Shedeur Sanders, and Brad Holmes went another way. So it was definitely being thought about in my head. But like I said, with Shedeur Sanders, it's not the play. He comes with a lot of distractions, mainly from his dad, and the spotlight. And, if he's sitting on the bench, and just real quick, this isn't a Shedeur Sanders show, I know, but let's picture a world where he's on our team. The first sign of Jared Goff struggling, what are fans going to want? They're going to want Shedeur Sanders. You go to Houston and you have that game where you go to Houston and you have that game like you did last year where you have 5 turnovers. Fans are going to be calling for Jared Goff to be benched for at least a half or a game, or if not longer. I don't know. So it comes with some distractions. I don't think it's needed, but it was an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I wasn't as much pressed about necessarily making a play to get him. I was interested to see if Brad was going to do something where he pushed back in the draft and somebody traded up to go get him. But Jackson Dart jumping ahead of him, man, that was interesting. So, and then if you're the Cleveland Browns, you're saying, hey, listen, Philadelphia don't need anything. The Kansas City Chiefs don't need anything. We're talking about quarterbacks. So they're like, hey, Brad, listen, I'll just stay right put where I'm at, man. So pretty much the only play was somebody else trying to jump ahead of those guys at pick 28, which is kind of what I was waiting to see, if somebody would try to jump ahead of the Cleveland Browns, who I think could very well easily be choosing Shedeur Sanders today. So that's kind of what I was looking for. That's the only thing that I was thinking about. But when we're talking about Tyleik Williams, he's a guy who we've talked about multiple times here at Detroit Den 313. There were some guys that I was interested on the board, but the bottom line, all the things that I felt about Tyleik Williams still remain the same. He's a Detroit Lion. He's a Detroit Lions style player. Tough, gritty. What do the Detroit Lions not to like to let you do here? We don't want you running the football. Like it's been like that for years. Where you're not coming to Detroit and just running the football unless you're a quarterback. So he just fits that mold perfectly. And then when I think about the situation of our defensive tackle room, it just makes even more sense. DJ Reader on the last year of his contract, who knows if he'll be back. And then Liam McNeil being out probably until Thanksgiving, so he's going to be out for a while. I don't know if Tyleik Williams is an immediate starter, but I think you get midway through the season, he's starting once he's got the defensive calls down and the playbook down. I think that he'll be a guy that's starting. And then when I think about the thought of Tyleik Williams and Aleem McNeil and Aiden Hutchinson all on the same defensive line, that excites me a whole lot, man. I think you're probably going to see Tyleik Williams playing the nose. He's going to be playing the one technique. Then you're going to have Aleem at the three technique, and then you're going to have Aiden Hutchinson doing his thing, man, rushing the passer. That's a really good defensive line, man. And then when you talk about the guys that we have as reserves, mm, that excites me a lot. I think our defensive line got way better day one of the NFL draft. It just wasn't sexy, Steve. And that's what people got to understand. I feel like it's split 50-50. It's actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be on Twitter. I haven't been on Twitter a whole lot this morning, but last night after the pick, the first thing I did after the pick is had to go see what people were saying, how people were feeling. A lot of people were kind of split on it, but it wasn't the crash out that I thought it might be if we didn't go get one of those edge rushers. So, like you said, with Donovan Izoroku and Mike Green on the board, I thought people might just lose their minds. Some did, but most were pretty trusting in Brad.
Yeah, I think there's some people who are upset, but in the 3 years we've been podcasting, I've learned that it doesn't matter what happens. You're not going to make everyone happy. Like that's just the way this is going to happen. But this is what I found interesting. Will, let's take another look at the prospect profile from the NFL Combine for Tyleik Williams, 6'3", 334 pounds. What I love here is his prospect grade where it says will eventually be a plus starter. When that is, I don't know. Let's take a look at some of his athletic stuff. Third production score, top 10 in athleticism, third total in defensive tackles. But there's something down here, William. Do you see this NFL comparison right here?
Yeah.
Like I said, it's just Aleem McNeil's replacement until he comes back. And I get it. People, this is why I think people are bitching is this round 2 draft projection right here. Don't care. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I did find that his comparison was the guy that he's kind of replacing until he comes back from injury. But I think that the Detroit Lions did the best thing they could do. I know you didn't get a chance to listen to Brad Holmes' press conference last night, but he said some very, very interesting things. People were obviously asking about the edge position, and he laughed because, he gets that question 27 times a day, just like those kids are outside your door waiting to ask dad some questions first thing in the morning.
Right.
But someone asked him about the edge position. He laughed it off because he gets that question pretty much 24/7. But he said, I've already got some ideas brewing. And he goes on to say that it might not be in relation to the edge position. But man, when he said that, I was just like, Bradley, I hate it when you play with our emotions as Lions fans. You know what a big weekend this is. Just tell us what your plans are. And I know he's not going to, but I'm curious to see what he whips up today. But the Tyleik Williams pick, he kind of hinted and said some stuff that, there were some teams calling him and it just didn't make sense. And I just got the vibe that Tyleik Williams was one of those guys in his bucket. And I think his bucket was getting pretty empty. And this is just my thoughts, but I think after Derek Harmon went to 21 to the Steelers, he wasn't really expecting that. I think he was probably expecting Shedeur Sanders to go there. So I think he thought that another D tackle would be on the board. And this is just a gut feeling that Tyleik Williams was probably the last player in his bucket, so he didn't want to move back. And if you listen to something that the Eagles, Howie Roseman said as well, that they tried to make a trade to move up a few spots and it didn't work out. So I think that the Lions and the Eagles were talking, and the Eagles wanted to get ahead of some teams to get Jahad Campbell, but Brad Holmes didn't think that his guy Tyleik Williams would be there at 32. So just a little interesting, just a little theory I put together, no facts behind it, but just reading the clues. But Tyleik Williams, William, I think this is a phenomenal pick, and I'm not going to get up here and just beat the drum of Detroit Lions slappy. It's a position of need. I think he's the same version of Derek Harmon, just a little bit bigger. Like he's just as athletic. I absolutely love it. I'm curious to see who he pairs him with today when we get 2 more players, possibly.
I think he's more explosive than Derek Harmon. Bigger and more explosive. I think he's the most explosive defensive tackle in the draft, and I mean in the draft. He's just that first step is explosive. He's violent. He's a run stopper. He's eating up double teams. He's a guy that's going to be a problem. Him on that D line, I think he's in a perfect situation too. He's going to be playing in between 2 all-pro guys and Aiden Hutchinson and Aleem McNeil. It's just going to be a tough. It's going to be tough sailing as an offensive lineman dealing with this D line as it stands right now. Let alone, I mean, this D line with Marcus Davenport is a problem. Let alone whatever is about to happen today. If we address the edge rusher position, we're going to be scary. But I will pose this question: how do you feel about the potential 3-4 now? Bringing in Tyleik Williams, do you still think maybe a 3-4 is in the making, or do you think this now solidifies maybe we're probably most likely going to be a forefront team moving forward?
And give me till the end of the day. I want to see what the Lions do before I really, really know. Well, I don't know. I just look at Tyleik, and I think you're right. But what I wanted to look at also is, I know, we're familiar with Mason Graham, right? Like, heard the name before. He went number 5 to the Cleveland Browns, and he had 3.5 sacks last year. So Tyleik Williams only had 2.5 sacks. So you're telling me that at pick 28, we got a guy with one less sack than the top defensive tackle taken in this draft. Tyleik Williams is bigger and I think more violent. Mason Graham's just maybe a little bit more athletic, but I think that this is an absolute steal. So do you think that people are fair to be a little upset because they see that second round grade? Would you call this a reach at all, or how do you feel about those terms?
I don't think it's a reach. Do I think that he obviously most likely was probably about to be there at the top half of the second round? He was, but does it really matter if he's your guy? It's no difference than we talked about Darius Alexander. Darius Alexander is a guy that we really love here at Detroit in 313, and we believe that Brad Holmes liked Darius Alexander, and he's still not off on my draft board because I think you still can bring in Darius Alexander because he can play all over the defensive line. But back to the point, to me, man, if it's a guy that's going to be outside of your reach at pick 60, then you got to move up and go get him. Or if it's a guy, it's who's going to be, when you're picking at 102, but you feel like this is a guy who potentially could be a guy that's graded at 115, you take him at 102. So who cares what? I guarantee you this: if Tyleik Williams was graded as a round 2 guy, it was before pick 40 or around pick 40. So what's the difference from 32 or 28 to pick 40? If that's your guy and he's not going to be available when we get our next pick at pick 60, go get your man.
Yeah, I'm with you. You said it perfectly. Like, given the 40 example. Listen, when you're picking at pick 28, you're basically kissing round 2 right on the lips. Like, you haven't fully taken it home yet, but you're making out in the driveway. Like, it's right there. You're damn near picking in the second round. So I was just kind of, last night I was just doing some browsing, listening to that Brad Holmes interview. And Will, I don't know if you have the board pulled up for the best available players, or I'm looking at the best available edges, but is there someone you got your eyes on today?
No, man. I I was texting you throughout the draft. Some of it serious, some of it clowning. But one thing I did mean is, man, there's a lot more of that pool of players that I like available than I thought would be. And that's why the draft is the draft, man. We talked about it in drafts past. So you don't know who's still going to be on that board. There's a ton of guys that I love still available. And then we still got Shador Sanders and Jalen Milroe who have to get selected by somebody. So that's 2 guys that aren't picking from that pool of players that we really want. So I'm heavily interested to see what Brad does today. Will he be making a trade to trade up in the draft? Will he be making a trade for a player to acquire from a different team? What's going to happen? Because you have made mention to the fact he said he's got something up his sleeve. He's got a way that he's planning on addressing it, but everybody's still there. Steve, Mike Green, Donovan Izoroku, Josiah Stewart, Jordan Birch, Shamar Turner, TJ Sanders. Landon Jackson. Like, there's all types of players still available on this board. It's nuts, man. Like, it could go any direction right now. Is there anybody that you're locked in on that you're really hoping that Brad and goes and gets today?
I've just got my pool. Like you mentioned, the Jalen Milroe and Shador Sanders still there. There's still the 2 Ohio State running backs that I think will get drafted fairly quickly here. I don't know when, but I think they'll be early day 2 guys. I think a team might like Caleb Johnson, the running back from Iowa. Like, there's still a lot of players out there that are going to push some of these guys down towards us that I really like. Jaden Higgins, a wide receiver from Iowa State, Luther Burden. Like, those are just a couple wide receivers. There's still plenty of linemen, linebackers who I'm looking at is if you're telling me right now that I've already locked up Tyleik Williams, I got a D tackle while Ali McNeil's out. If you're telling me that that's already done, and now Mike Green's still there as a Raku, JTT, I don't want to double up on Buckeyes. I just want to be very clear about that. If you've been watching long enough, you know I have a thing for JTT. I think he's phenomenal, but can't double up on Buckeyes. Nick Scorton still available, Will? Are you nuts? He was potentially a first rounder. What are we doing here? Landon Jackson, Josiah Stewart, Kyle Kennard. Like, there's still a bunch of people that I like in round 2 for the edge position. Who's going to fall to us? Does Brad have to move up? What's his round 2 bucket look like? We don't know that. We didn't even know his first round bucket. We damn well don't know his second and third round buckets. But my bucket is pretty full. Those are the guys I got an eye on. If you're telling me I can leave round 2 with any one of those players I just named, please and thank you. Like, that's all I'll say, because it's possible, but I don't think the pool is going to be very deep if we stay at 60. But there's some players out there that could help us, like those 2 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, some receivers. Like, it's possible that a couple of them fall, but I think if Brad really wants his pick of the litter, make a move and go get your man.
Go get your man. And I can't wait to see who they are, really, because it's going to be most likely 2 of them today that we get to see get selected.
You think we leave here with two edges today?
I doubt it, man. I don't think it'll be 2 edges. I think you could very well see us get one in one way, shape, or form. So, but after that, it's going to be that I think we're going to get a curveball pick today. We're going to get something wild. Not wild, but we're going to get that sexy pick that we talked about. I think it's going to be something, man. Will it be like a Kyle Williams? Will it be, what will it be? I don't know, but I think Brad's going to go get another defender, and then I think we're going to get that interesting piece.
A little toy to play with.
A little toy for Jared Goff.
Real quick, I should have said this earlier. It was on my head. I even have it in my notes. For everyone that's saying that Tyleik Williams was a reach, Jahmyr Gibbs was supposed to be a second-round pick, according to some draft boards. Jack Campbell was supposed to be a second-round pick, according to some draft boards. So we don't know what the hell we're talking about. Brad Holmes, he does this for a living. Me and Will, we do this, a couple hours here and there. All right, we're not full-time scouts, unfortunately. But I just want to leave people with that. For everyone who was upset when you drafted All-Pro Jahmyr Gibbs and a really, really stud player in Jack Campbell, I think Tyleik Williams fits that category. And like Will said, what's the difference between 28 and pick 40? Like, if that was the guy, that was the guy.
I look at the puzzle, man. If you look at the puzzle, he's going to fit right into the puzzle. He's going to address a need that we have while Aleem is gone. While I don't feel like, I can see why people are comping him to Aleem, but I feel like he's just a hint different than Aleem. And that's why he's going to fit perfectly into this puzzle. When Aleem comes back, Aleem is going to be the 3 tech. He's going to be the nose. Aiden Hutchinson is going to be the edge. And then we'll see who that other guy is going to be today. But I think when you're putting the puzzle together, it fits perfectly. And I will say, although he was a guy that we talked about him potentially being a pick at pick 28. So it's not like it's a guy that was just completely shocking to me when we drafted him.
I think he was my first pick in my first mock draft, if I'm being honest.
If I literally went, okay, I see what Brad's doing. It wasn't one of those, oh my God. I wasn't mad at all. I was just like, that's one of those draft moves similar to Penei Sewell, even though I was going crazy for Penei. But for the average fan, drafting a lineman just isn't sexy. Drafting a defensive tackle, unless it's like the top defensive tackle in the draft, like Mason Graham or something crazy that it's like you've heard about and you know him, but it's just not sexy. But when you watch the Detroit Lions on TV or at the games, and you see Tyleik Williams, Aleem McNeil, and Aiden Hutchinson out there, you're going to be like, Brad's the best, Brad's the greatest, when they're just wrecking havoc on these quarterbacks and running backs, man. So just controlling the line of scrimmage. Tyleik Williams, he will dominate the line of scrimmage. Aleem McNeil will be playing behind the line of scrimmage, as will Aiden Hutchinson. Great pick. Solid pick. Just Brad doing what Brad does.
I think he was probably the last of the D tackles that really, really interested me, other than Darius Alexander. Like TJ Sanders, I think that there's a significant gap between Tyleik Williams and then TJ Sanders and a Darius Alexander, who I think you're right. I think he's still on my draft board too. I still got my eyes on him, but I think he's kind of just creeped down a little bit with what we did yesterday. I'm not saying Brad won't double down because he's done it several times. So I wouldn't be shocked if we still leave here with another defensive tackle. But I think that's how Brad looked at it was, he had his pool of defensive tackles. He saw that as probably the biggest need, he's probably assuming Marcus Davenport stays completely healthy. But I think he'll have some contingency plans for that throughout the rest of the draft. I think he just looked at Tyleik and said, this is the last guy that I have a first round grade on. I'm just going to go ahead and take him now. He's not going to be there at 60. He's a plug and play. He's a phenomenal athlete. I absolutely love it. I don't want to grade it. I know people are probably going to want us to give it a grade. I'll probably give a grade at the end of the draft. And keep in mind, I'm an idiot and gave last year's draft an A+, and I wish I could go back and strike that from the record and completely get rid of it, but it's out there, and I'll be honest. So maybe at the end of the draft, we'll do a grade, but I really, really love the Tyleik Williams pick, William.
I'll give it a grade. I think it's an A.
An A?
It's a perfect fit. It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense for immediate. It makes perfect sense for down the road. It addresses an issue like DJ Reader potentially being in his last year as a Detroit Lion. Not saying that I want that, but obviously it's a potential. He's in the last year of his contract, and you got two young defensive tackles. And then also just the thought process of people trying to run the football and DJ Reader and Tyleik Williams being out there in the meantime. Wow,
good luck.
That's a problem. So, man, I think it's an A just exclusively by itself. Brad not breaking under the pressure and doing something crazy with the quarterback out there and Shedeur Sanders, or the potential to make a trade. Brad sticking to his gun, doing what he believes in.
Do you think that the best player available term should be killed and dead now with Brad Holmes?
I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that Tyleik Williams wasn't the best player available. To be honest, I mean, it's a matter,
right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's all up to interpretation, because for me, I said it before when we were talking about our prospects, and at the end of this thing, who I was really looking at outside of the defensive tackle positions, I had some guys grouped together. But even when I talked about them, I feel like Derek Harmon is a little bit different than Tyleik Williams, who's a little bit different than Kenneth Grant. So, and I think that it depends on scheme fit and what you're trying to do. I don't know that Derek Harmon would have fit what we're trying to do. I even look at Derek Harmon as more like a Liam McNeil style player, because I don't see Derek Harmon coming in and playing nose for a team. Now, Kenneth Grant could have came in and played those, so that would have been interesting. But I think it's all about fit, man. It's all about what you're trying to do and how your board falls. If he was looking for somebody to be a perfect fit next to Liam McNeil, he did a perfect thing.
Our defensive line, the future defensive line, eventually, someday this year, I don't know what week, when Liam McNeil comes back, you're going to have Marcus Davenport. Please stay healthy. Please, for the love of God, stay healthy. Liam McNeil, Tyleik Williams, Aiden Hutchinson. How do you feel about that starting defensive line? Like, maybe not starting, but you'll see that combination.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I love in run situations. If you're telling me I can be down on a goal line with a Liam McNeil, DJ Reader, Tyleik Williams, and Aiden Hutchinson out there, tush push me if you want to. I mean, like, who's dealing with these guys in a goal line situation? And then I can still play around with a Marcus Davenport, a Levi Onwuzurike, a Roy Lopez, who's another one who's stout, not getting moved too easily. There's so many combinations of big, strong guys up front. Now for the Detroit Lions, goal line situations are going to be one of the most exciting things that I'm looking forward to moving forward. Short yardage goal line, getting all those big guys out there fighting, But I will say this, and not to be mean, Broderick, man, you're going to have to do something special to just keep your butt on this team, man. Like, you're going to have to, because there's a lot of defensive tackles on this team. So he is in a situation to where if he was watching the draft last night, he should have been going,
shit,
I'm just going to go work out. I need to go hit the gym. I need to whatever. So, yeah, man, on notice, but yeah, I like the pick, man. I'm interested to see what happens today, man. Today is going to be, you said it yesterday, and I agree with it to a certain extent. Today could be more pivotal than day one. Like, we had to get day one right, but today could be what really makes this thing a home run.
Round one is for like it's glitz and glam, it's the show, but drafts are won and teams are built in the middle rounds, and that starts today. So give me a player that you're looking at. Another same thing we did the other day. Make a prediction who leaves today a Detroit Lion.
Listen, I will say this. I'm not going to predict that he leaves the Detroit Lion, but I would say I'm not off on Darius Alexander. I do not have Darius Alexander as a defensive tackle. I have him as a hybrid defensive lineman. So under those circumstances, I still would be happy with him being a Detroit Lion. But who do I want to see and who do I expect to see? You already know. Michigan Wolverine, Josiah Stewart.
A Buckeye and a Wolverine in the same draft, Will?
Buddy.
How will that mesh?
Yeah, get it. It's mesh perfectly. They'll talk trash to each other. They'll talk trash to each other all training camp, and that'll be that. Decker will get involved. Aiden Hutchinson will get involved, and it'll be a fun thing. And then on Sundays, they'll go wreck people's lives.
That's right. Competition. I'm all about it.
You got.
Well, I don't know if I have. I'm just looking through my list. I'm trying to make a good prediction here, but there's just something about Donovan Ezraku still being out there in round 2, Will, and Brad saying that he's already got a plan in place. I don't know what that plan is, but I think he's making a move today. I don't think Brad likes to sit still. All right. He sat still last night. I don't think he's going to be doing that 2 days in a row. And in his press conference, they asked him, when you wake up in the morning, who's going to be the guy that just comes to your mind? And he goes, well, obviously I won't know that until the morning, so I can't answer that. Kind of like they did. I forget the player, but him and Dan Campbell just woke up and said, that's the guy today. I can't remember who that was. Sione Vaki. If it's another moment like that and him and Dan are just locked in and they're dialed in and they have the same thought process, he's going to make a move and he's going to go get them. So I'm just looking, you could really hit an absolute nuclear bomb if you got a Donovan Ezraku. Real quick, I heard some stuff on Mike Green that he had similar to Shedeur Sanders, just bad interviews during his draft process. Don't know if there's any legs to that, but maybe that's why he fell. But he intrigues me as well. But if I'm Brad, move up today, go get Donovan Ezraku. Your draft is pretty much already done. This is a team that doesn't have a lot of needs. You pick up an O-lineman there, a linebacker, whatever else you need, a wide receiver, and some other rounds. Might not be very sexy, but you've got 2 potential starters on defense, and I think that's where the needs really lie. So, Brad, please make a move and get Donovan Ezraku. But if you do something else, I'm perfectly fine with it. Trust the process. I think he's going to do fine. Well, you got anything else for today?
Can't wait.
Stick around, hit that like button. We'll be back later with another show.